Okay, so now that we're a few years out of virtual learning, we're about to dive into what happened to my teen during virtual learning. My name is Dr. Amy Stewart, and I was a school teacher for 14 years. And we're going to talk about what happened with your kid and the learning and all of that kind of stuff when virtual learning took place. First things first, you had a bunch of teachers who were used to teaching in person. Now, there were some that were using Google Classroom and things like that already, but there was a big chunk that were like, not. And so all of a sudden, very quickly, they had to teach from home and figure all that kind of stuff out. The other part is that now where your kid could have been learning from somebody talking, right? Also up on the board, also a piece of paper handed out, physically taking notes, being able to ask a friend kind of like in private, like what did she just talk about? Or I don't understand, what page are we on? Having all of those resources to help learn, possibly having an assistant in the classroom, having those opportunities where teachers just kind of go off on a tangent and just kind of have these like teachable moments. A lot of this stuff was taken out when virtual learning happened because it was very much like here, things were a lot more structured. So if your teen could not learn by somebody just reading PowerPoints to them, like I would have been no more good. They struggled, they checked out. Who wants to sit and be read to, right? There's some kids who enjoy being read to. There's some kids that it is like I have to physically be doing something. So I'm either doodling, or just the act of me being able to write down the notes helped me focus. Like there's studies about that where like I saw a TikTok the other day where a girl was like scribbling on the side and she's reading notes, and that was supposed to like help her remember things. And I believe her. When I was able to write things down, or having the teacher have an opportunity to kind of like explain the content with a real world application. And when you're just kind of juggling, just trying to get to the end of the lesson, those opportunities sometimes are taken out. So some of the big things, again, kids were not able to use themselves of resources. Were there breakout sessions? I'm sure, but it wasn't the same. There was too much tech that had to be learned at the same time of learning content. And that's very difficult, right? Which is why in elementary school, you're learning how to write, not learning how to write research papers. You're learning how to physically write. You're learning how to actually read the letters. You're learning the sounds. You're not learning how to do literary analysis until you have figured out how to do those skills. So what was happening was you had kids having to learn the skill of Zoom, but little kids, high school kids as well, learning how to use Zoom, learning how to use breakout rooms, learning how to use Google Classroom, learning how to use Google Docs, all of us having to learn that, and also being responsible for learning content, which was a problem. The second thing is learning styles. There are only so many ways that you can, like, unless teachers were being given professional development on how to accommodate a variety of learning styles with virtual learning, which I don't know that was happening. I don't remember really seeing much of it, but I also wasn't in the classroom, so I can't 100% say for certain. But I'd bet a paycheck that they were not being taught the professional development, because who knew this was coming, and who knows the strategies? The people that are in charge of the teachers have never taught in a pandemic virtually before, so they probably didn't know either. And then I think the biggest issue was kids not understanding how to self-pace themselves, how to be motivated. Most of us only respond to consequences. I am terrible at that. I procrastinate because I'm waiting for a consequence to fall. I'm trying to teach myself to not wait for the consequence and just do the thing I'm supposed to do, right? Making these videos, there's no consequence if I don't make the video, but it is something that I need to do. And so when it came to your learner, if you had teachers that had PowerPoints or things that they need to read, they had papers they need to work on, whatever it was, there was nobody standing over them. And then when word kind of got out that like the grades weren't going to count and everybody was going to get passed anyway, then really, like, what was the point? Like, I wouldn't do my work either. And then that rolls into our kids not understanding their personal learning style. And in virtual learning, like if you decided over all of this, if you decided to homeschool your kid or unschool your kid, this is where they get the opportunity to explore their learning style. I left my teaching job and I became an entrepreneur. I had to learn my learning style. I don't learn well when people just talk to me. I have to be engaged in something else. So for instance, last night I was listening to a Facebook Live training with one of my coaches, and I was scrolling on my phone. Was I listening to her? Absolutely. I had my notes app pulled up and I'm taking notes, but I also was like, checking emails. I also was doing other things. I had it pulled up on the TV, like, the little AirPlay or whatever. And then I had something going on my computer. It's very possible that I have a podcast going on, or a training that I'm listening to, or a class that I have to take for my childcare center while I'm also working on social media. Another thing I do is, if it's something that requires my undivided attention, for instance, making these videos, I set a timer. I'm gonna make videos for 20 minutes. Then I'm gonna move on to writing social media copy. Then I'm gonna do 30 minutes of something else. And like, I kind of like circle around, because I know that I cannot do one thing for an extended period of time. My brain flutters around, and I need to give myself opportunities to work on projects that I'm excited about right now, projects that I need to do. So if I can kind of sandwich them in, I could do something that I really like doing, something that I have to do that I don't really want to do. I just do it for 20 minutes, whether it's I'm going to go unload the dishwasher, I'm going to fold up some clothes. Like, well, let's be honest, I'm not folding any clothes, but do some dishes, like whatever, and then back to something I enjoy doing. That is a practice that we can instill into our teens. And so one of the beautiful things are, if your kid is still doing virtual learning, or like I said, you decided to homeschool them or unschool them or whatever, allowing them opportunities, as weird as it may look, opportunities to figure out what is their best learning style, what is the best thing to help them stay motivated. Because if they feel overwhelmed, if I feel overwhelmed with a task that I don't want to do, I'm going to avoid it. But if it's something that I have to do, like, I hate doing the books for my business, but I have to do it. I hate doing paperwork for my childcare center, but I still have to do it. So I set time, 20 minutes. I'll do it for 20 minutes. Whatever I get done is what I get done. And then a couple hours later, I might do another 20 minutes. So those are just some strategies that work for me, because my brain is all over the place. So having conversations with your kids, especially your older teenagers, because they have kind of been programmed about like what's a good work habit when it comes to school, especially if they're going to be going off to college. They need to really understand how to do self-paced work. They need to understand what they can do to intrinsically motivate themselves, as opposed to just waiting for a consequence.